On today's tax update, another newly discovered problem at the IRS, as it's now being reported they locked the accounts of almost 100,000 taxpayers, preventing a release of tax refunds as a result. So we'll take a look at what happened. We'll also recap the next batch of tax refunds scheduled for release this week, as well as those ongoing tax delay problems and the issue of adjusted tax refunds, along with some of those IRS letters currently being received in the mail. Starting off with those tax refunds, with the next batch of direct deposit tax refunds scheduled for release on August 30th, while the next batch of paper checks will be printed and mailed out on September 1st. Make sure to check your tax transcripts to confirm if you're part of this latest refund batch. And for those with direct deposit refunds, do allow up until 3 business days to receive that in your bank account, while those receiving paper checks must wait 30 days before initiating a payment trace for a check not received. That tax update, as the IRS is behind in the release of their latest update as of this recording. As of their previous update, the unprocessed amount of tax returns was at 1.5 million, with 1.4 million being e-file returns and those requiring special processing, while paper returns was down to 121,000 remaining. The IRS is also several weeks behind on any updates on amended returns, with 1.14 million left as of the latest update, though it's possible that number may now be below 1 million once we see those new numbers. However, for you amended return filers, we've seen an influx of reports from our viewers who filed their amended returns back in the month of March, who are finally confirming the IRS has completed their returns in the last several weeks, as well as those amended return filers from early April who are seeing the return status moved to adjusted. So all in all, a slow process, but we are seeing movement. Meanwhile, for those of you still waiting on your tax refunds, the IRS has announced an increase to the interest rate on those past due tax refunds effective October 1st. The interest rate for refunds due for individual returns has been increased to 8%, which is the highest it's been since way back in 2007. Now, that interest is compounded daily and begins 45 days after the tax filing deadline of April 18th, assuming you filed your taxes before the deadline, and that interest will be automatically sent with your refund when it is finally released. Who live in states which saw that federal tax deadline extended until October 15th due to disaster declarations, such as the majority of California, interest owed on past due refunds does not start until 45 days after that October 15th date for you, which puts that at late November, early December. Now, moving on to those ongoing tax refund issues, with more returns being processed and refunds being sent, now come more instances of adjusted tax refunds. In some cases, the refund adjustment is so much that the taxpayer goes from expecting a tax refund to now owing the IRS. There are several different reasons why this is happening and will continue to occur as processing continues. One of the more common reasons for a refund adjustment is that there was an entry error on the tax return, or as the IRS refers to it, a math error when it comes to wages or tax withholding amounts. Now, usually for reasonable errors, when it's a clear taxpayer error, the IRS will autocorrect the issue so that you don't need to file an amended tax return. Last year, over 17 million tax returns contained math errors, so it is common. We're also getting to a point in the year now that the IRS is rejecting those who claim certain credits like the Earned Income Tax Credit and Child Tax Credit who have failed to provide documentation that is being requested to substantiate the credit. Losing those credits in particular can significantly reduce the overall amount of the refund and could be a factor that sees taxpayers going from a refund expected to be received to now owing the IRS. Other reasons for adjusted tax refunds, including past due child support, state income tax obligations, as well as balances owed to the state for unemployment benefits that should have not been paid out. With the high amount of unemployment benefits paid out in 2020 and 2021, we're seeing more of this than in previous years. Also, any past due IRS tax debt is also to be considered. One of those notices impacted taxpayers could expect to see is a CP24 notice, as seen here. That's if the IRS adjusts your refund, and even after the adjustments, you are still owed some refund, whether it is more or less than what you were expecting. The IRS will recap what specific changes were made on the second page of this notice. Now, if the IRS makes a refund adjustment and applies it to, say, past due tax debt, and the amount is large enough that you now owe the IRS, you will receive a CP49 notice, like seen here, detailing which tax year and what amount exactly was deducted from this current tax year's refund, then giving you the remaining balance you owe to the IRS. If you're under audit and there are changes, expect to receive the IRS Form 886A as seen here. It will list the amount you entered on your tax returns under the column per return. It will list the amount the IRS calculated under the per exam column. And under adjustment, the IRS will list the difference between the two and the final amount you are entitled to. For those under audit, especially with self-employment income, they can expect to receive this, as well as those with claims that don't match the Earned Income Tax Credit and Child Tax Credit. Moving on to yet a newly discovered problem at the IRS. As it's been discovered, the IRS froze the accounts of nearly 100,000 taxpayers who they thought were deceased, who actually were still living. Now, typically, the IRS locks accounts of taxpayers who have passed away to prevent fraudulent use of the deceased person's information. When your account is locked by the IRS because you've been marked deceased, you can't file tax returns or receive tax refunds. The IRS did confirm that many of the taxpayer accounts were locked in error due to both human and computer programming issues when identifying the appropriate taxpayers' accounts to be locked. It's not been indicated if the IRS has fixed the issue themselves and how many taxpayers who filed this year and waiting on their refunds are impacted by this particular issue. Typically, impacted taxpayers will receive the CP01H notice, like seen here, to indicate the lock. But as we've seen with almost every other notice, impacted taxpayers don't always receive it, whether it's lost in the mail, sent to the wrong address, or the IRS simply never mailed it out, which leaves taxpayers completely in the dark on what their delay in issue is ultimately. If you're impacted by this, take immediate action. First, you will need to contact the Social Security Administration to confirm your status, after which time you can file your tax return with the IRS along with a copy of the CP01H notice if you have it, a written request to unlock the account, and a copy of any valid photo ID. Make sure to send it certified mail, but as a result of the IRS or SSA error, impacted taxpayers are going to have to do the work themselves to help fix the government's mistakes. Yet another reason why the IRS should not be moving forward with their own free e-filing tax system. With yet another newly discovered problem being exposed, they're simply not in a position to take on a huge new task such as the new platform. We've had several questions in regards to lost tax refunds. Now, if the IRS has indicated they released your direct deposit refund and you've not received it within 3 business days of the refund date, or if they indicated they mailed you out a paper check and it's been at least 30 days, you will want to initiate a payment trace so they can begin the process of issuing a new refund. A payment trace will allow them to confirm either if the paper check was sent out and never deposited or cash, or determine where that direct deposit refund was sent to. Upon completion of the payment trace, the IRS will reissue you a new refund, usually within 3 to 4 weeks. You can either contact the IRS through their customer service line, use the automated phone line system in select cases, but you cannot use it if you've filed a married filed jointly tax return, or you can fill out the IRS Form 3911 and submit it to the IRS by fax or mail. Now, if your refund was returned by your tax processor or bank, such as Chime, then this is different, and the time frame, especially if your refund was flagged, could be several additional months as a result. Let us know in the comments section below about your ongoing tax issue, including when and how you filed, and if you plan to do anything differently next year. Thank you to all our viewers and those who leave comments, and a special thanks to those who donate to this channel by clicking on the Super Thanks button below. It is very much appreciated and helps the channel continue throughout the year. In the meantime, we'll keep monitoring the situation for further developments, so make sure to click on the thumbs up and subscribe button below for future updates on this channel, and thanks for watching.